Against Italy, Maradona, and by association the whole of Argentina, was subjected to intimidation that bordered upon cold brutality. Yet to his credit, the little man never once went into hiding from his assassins. Match officials seemed either blind or inept. Argentina felt singled out, picked upon. They felt hard done by. The lack of protection against this crippling intimidation given to Maradona was inexcusable. The Malvinas War was edging towards its inevitable conclusion. Argentine casualties were many. Her soldiers fighting on this cold, windswept island regarded themselves as an army of liberation. To the British entering Port Stanley, they were an army of occupation. Morally, this was a conflict that should have been settled by negotiation. Now her armed forces were in retreat and facing captivity. Against Brazil, an old adversary, frustration came to a head. Brazil had the football pedigree. She believed herself superior to the Argentine mentality. Maradona had been treated unfairly. The country was facing military defeat and an uncertain future. It was Brazil who would suffer from this boiling sense of injustice. One emotional overreaction by Maradona left a Brazilian on the ground. His dismissal provided the young maestro with the longest and the loneliest walk of his entire career. With Maradona's departure went Argentina's hopes of retaining the World Cup. Now even their Spanish adventure had turned to ashes. After the debacle of the Malvinas, the military junta was persuaded to step aside. General Galtieri tendered his resignation, and a period of uneasy calm settled over the country. Ten years of vicious dictatorship had left deep social and psychological scars throughout the towns and the cities. Grim searches for the disappeared ones continued to uncover harrowing evidence of man's endless capacity for cruelty. By Maradona's standards, the years between 1982 and 1986 were unspectacular. A lucrative contract had lured him from Buenos Aires to Barcelona in Spain. Unfortunately, the time spent playing for the Catalan people proved a rather fallow period. Illness and disorientation rendered Maradona weak and unfulfilled. Now he was looking for a new home, a fresh start. It was Naples, the southern Italian city, which offered the perfect invitation. A multi-million lira deal was struck with Napoli, and Maradona was thrust into the white-hot glare of an Italian spotlight. Napoli's resources were now stretched to the limit because of his purchase. Yet within days of his signature, a Napoli season ticket was worth more than the Italian gold reserves. Naples was the city from where so many of Maradona's countrymen had replanted their roots over a century before. Naples was the one European city which reminded the Argentine traveler of Buenos Aires. Naples had become Maradona's home from home prior to the 1986 World Cup in Mexico. The whistle, which every international footballer waits a lifetime to hear. The final whistle that pierces the air, informing the rest that he has won a World Cup winner's medal. '86 was Maradona's finest hour. In Mexico, Argentina had experienced victory thanks largely to the exotic genius of their captain. Maradona had been the scorer of vital goals and the creator of vital goals for others to score. He'd been the midfield engine room and the supreme inspiration. Argentina's opening match in 1986 was against lowly South Korea. To most impartial observers, it was a rather dull affair. Prophetically, after the game, Maradona made a statement. "I hope people will show enough respect to applaud us in the final." But when an Italian slotted home a penalty in the following game, the final appeared more a mirage than a reality. Perhaps it was because Italy was now his new arena, that Maradona felt compelled to pick up the gauntlet and show his class. A brilliant solo performance was the start of things to come, both for Argentina and, in the coming years, for Napoli. Although the game ended in a 1-1 stalemate, it lit the fuse for Maradona's forthcoming Mexican explosion. Progression meant that they played Uruguay, a country which bordered Argentina. Like Brazil, Uruguay believed the Argentine people should be tolerated, but not encouraged. But changes for the better were now taking place in Argentina. Uruguay needed to be taught that lesson. To score and go ahead against Uruguay is, to most red-blooded Argentine males, an unparalleled ecstasy. And when Maradona appeared to score a characteristic energy-pumping second goal, they felt like God's chosen people. However, when the referee disallowed the strike, the whole of Argentina thought that the god of football was in one of his more fickle moods. Perhaps the man in black was the devil in disguise. Only a man wearing black could disappoint such an innocent. To the English, in a quarter-final, Maradona was about to lose all traces of innocence. The irony of football, Argentina versus England, the first meeting between the two nations since the Malvinas War. From the start, in the burning heat of the Aztec Stadium, Maradona was singled out for that special treatment. For Carlos Bilardo, the new team manager, these were anxious moments. Thrust and counter-thrust then led to the most controversial goal in the competition. As the ball arced up towards the English goal line, Maradona's hand arced up towards the ball. A sly look towards the official, and he was off on celebration. English protest fell on deaf ears. Now, if a transgression goes unnoticed by a referee and two linesmen, an Argentinian will believe it is not his fault. He's exonerated. It's the football god demonstrating his fairness. While they smoldered from this outrage, Maradona sensed that the English were vulnerable now more than ever. Picking the ball up in midfield, the squat, dark figure left three Englishmen floundering. A moment of incredible acceleration, and he headed goalward with a singular purpose. This irascible bundle of contradictions had not only scored the most foul goal in World Cup history, but had now brought millions to their feet with arguably the finest solo effort anytime, any place. A spirited English response found some reward, but their single goal was never going to be enough. Beating Uruguay and England both in the same week was Argentina's idea of football heaven. Now the World Cup semi-final beckoned. Maradona was moving inexorably towards the pinnacle of his career. Belgium were semi-final opponents. As always, Maradona looked for divine inspiration. It took until the second half for his prayer to be answered. Indeed, for a whole nation's prayers to be answered, with a strike of typical style and breathtaking precision. Even the Argentine goalkeeper gave thanks. Ten minutes later, and Maradona's speed of mind and body allowed his left foot to deliver the coup de grace. Under the Mexican sun, a banner was seen saying, "Maradona, ¿por qué no naciste en Mexico?" Maradona, why weren't you born in Mexico? Argentina had made it through to their second World Cup final in 8 years. Perhaps standing for the national anthems before the final against Germany meant more to Argentina than the rest of the world could possibly imagine. In the towns and the cities built upon the rolling pampas of their homeland, this nation, which had suffered so dramatically under the boot of countless tyrants, now stood on the threshold of a new social era. Maradona made himself ready, the most important 90 minutes of his whole life. People felt proud, and justly so. From the start, both teams began cautiously. There was so much to lose. Then a stupid trip by a German player under the nose of a linesman brought Argentina a free kick. Not for the first time, Argentina would owe a vote of thanks to an official in the World Cup. The resultant free kick swung over, the German goalkeeper went for a stroll, and Argentina were a goal to the good. Unusually for Maradona, it was the thumbs up and not the sign of the cross.